Eventually they started dropping out of their roost trees and into the dense cover all around us on the ground. One of the big toms we had seen dropped in behind our blind. We had to open some different windows to find him, but when we did, we found him already courting 2 hens within range of a shot. The only problem was that he was behind the bush while the hens were in the wide open. We figured the tom would surely come out any time for the shot though. When it finally left the cover of the brush, it headed straight away from us and into thicker cover. Just a few minutes later, however, they all came back out into the open. Once again, the hens were close. When the tom appeared, he was just barely out of range. At this point, apparently the tom had his spot. He stayed within just a couple yards, pacing back and forth, strutting and showing off for the hens as hen after hen crossed the clearing from our right to our left. In fact, while we watched, several hens dropped in from their roosts right next to him and the other turkeys. Now here's something interesting. This hen that just flew in has a 3 to 4 inch beard. While not many hens have them, some do. And it just goes to show that you need to be careful when identifying your targets. You can tell that he's a good mature tom, as his beard is a solid 7 to 9 inches long. As I watched, I thought it was really fascinating how the tom has the ability to control which direction his fanned out tail aims. If the hen he's trying to impress is on one side or the other, he can totally aim it to the right or the left to make sure the hen sees as much of the tail feathers as possible. Eventually a jake dropped in from the roost just in front of him. Now there's another tom for him to worry about. The bigger one immediately makes sure to position himself between the jake and most of the hens. Now the jake was in range of a shot and clear of other turkeys, but with the bigger, more mature tom right there, Luke was willing to risk it and wait for the shot on the mature one. Well, we sat and watched for another 20 minutes while that tom walked back and forth, making sure that all the hens filed past him and into the brush.
Maybe that'll pull them off.
Finally, when a single hen came our way and got a little bit closer to the jake, that was the break we were looking for, because that drew the big tom our way and brought him to within range of a shot.
I would take him when you got the shot.
He wasn't about to let the jake have an opportunity at that hen, and so it stayed close and kept trying to separate it from the jake. Being in range, I gave the go-ahead for Luke to take the shot whenever he had one. All Luke needed was a clear shot that was sure to come at any time. Or so we thought.
Safety off.
Just our luck. As soon as Luke was ready for a shot, the big tom kept moving back and forth between the hen and the jake, not leaving the clean shot Luke needed. Whenever it did finally stop or pause between the 2 other turkeys, it had its back to us and all we could see was his tail feathers. Of course, its luck was sure to end, as eventually it would make a deadly mistake of giving Luke the shot he needed. This went on for several minutes with Luke ready to pull the trigger as soon as it gave him the clean shot. Suddenly in the distance another turkey appeared, and I could tell from its long beard that it was another good mature tom. I figured this was a good thing, as now there was another good tom in the action. All we needed now was one of them to get into range, and so our odds of success just increased. Well, as you can see, I was dead wrong. The appearance of another big tom backfired. Instead, when the tom we had been waiting on all this time saw the other one coming, he beelined it right to the other one, taking it well out of range. Apparently having a young jake nearby was one thing, but he wasn't about to let another mature tom in the picture. Well, now they're both at about 50 yards, and as you can tell, neither one is terribly friendly with the other. It was obvious there was a fight in the making, and sure enough, the 2 decided to see who was the biggest and baddest tom on the block, using beaks, feathers, and spurs. This went on for several minutes. While we were frustrated that they were out of range of a shot, we actually really enjoyed watching it all happen in front of us. Eventually they had enough of this kind of fighting and moved on to what I saw last year with another turkey fight. They went for the heads. I still haven't figured out exactly what they're holding on to. When I've looked at the footage closely, it appears that one has the other beak inside its own mouth. Now this kind of fighting goes on until the end. In this case, they went into the brush when the fight finally stopped. It all went quiet until one of the toms appeared out of range but heading for where the hens were. Sure enough, when we opened up the other window to get a look, there it was right with the hens. With all the hens so close, there wasn't a clean shot, and so we were trying to figure out our options when suddenly the other tom that had lost showed up walking right past us. Well, just our luck, we had to reposition Luke into another opening so he could get the shot that he'd have to hurry and take before it was back into the thick brush. As you can see, Luke's hurried shot peppered the grass right in front of the tom that hurried out of there before Luke could take a second shot.
Guess I tried to hurry a little bit too much and pulled.
About 2 weeks after the hunt started, when our schedule and the weather allowed, we were out for another hunt. This time we had changed locations and were now hunting in the mountains instead of the river bottoms. Going to a place that had turkeys a week before, we'd set up our blind hoping the turkeys were somewhere around and that we could call them in if they were. Sure enough, as it got light, at least 3 turkeys started gobbling up the hillside in the pines. Knowing that these particular turkeys got less hunting pressure than those down along the river, I was optimistic that we could bring them in. Well, for a good half hour we called back and forth to the gobblers. We were able to get them excited enough to gobble at us about every time we called, but they just didn't seem to move. In fact, if anything, they sounded further away. Then they went quiet. They quit responding to us entirely. We tried lots of calls with both Jacob and I calling to make it sound like there were multiple hens nearby, and of course, I had 2 hen decoys between us and them with the tom decoy behind us. With several minutes of nothing, we were trying to figure out what went wrong when suddenly they gobbled right behind our blind. They were literally within 15 yards of us. It turned out they had snuck through some thick cover in an area we really didn't have very good visibility. We had planned on them coming into the open area where our decoys were.
Okay, hang on here. It's sliding. It's coming back down.
As we tried to get a good look at them, we found that there were 4 jakes and they were all close. Again, the only problem was all the sagebrush that hid them, except for the occasional look at their heads as they tried their best to figure us out. You wouldn't believe it, but for the next 6 minutes we tried to get a clear shot on them, even though they were always within 10 to 20 yards. They kept moving from left to right and then to the left again. It was almost like we were playing musical chairs inside the tent as we kept moving Luke back and forth from window to window trying to get the shot. Somehow they just kept one step ahead of Luke. Of course, all the sagebrush hiding them didn't help at all. Suddenly they started to walk away as if they might have had enough of us. Figuring this was Luke's last chance, I urged him to get high so he could see and take the shot before they were gone for good.
Get up and get one of those right there.
As you saw, he was really in an unstable position, and at the shot, it nearly knocked Luke off his seat. Needless to say, he missed. Jacob was able to see the jakes didn't fly off, but were instead just walking away in a hurry and sent him out to see if he could get another shot.
Walk out there and shoot one. Gotta be fast.
Even Luke, however, was sure that he'd just blown it. Sure enough, he saw some glimpses of them, but it was just that, glimpses. It looked like he'd missed his opportunity.
Shoot!
Shoot him! Got it! You got it! Good job!
Well, I have to say that this is one of my all-time favorite reactions to a hit. One of those priceless moments.
Got it! You got it! Good job!
Good job. Luke, good job, man. Way to go.
Well, we saw them and I took a shot and missed. They came running over here. They flew. One of them flew and then they were walking. One just ran up the hill and then the other 2 were just sitting there. So I went out of the blind to go and try to get a shot off of one of them. And one just ran away from the other one, so I shot the back one and I got him.
If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to the Outdoor Youth Challenge YouTube channel.